We're getting a look at the impeachment inquiry report filed by House Republicans. This is separate from the report that will be presented by the Democratic chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff. Joining me now is CBS News Capitol producer Rebecca Kaplan. Hi, Rebecca. So we know the Republicans have not bought into the case being made by Democrats that the president tried to bribe the president of Ukraine. But what is the main takeaway from the Republican report?
Well, Tanya, the Republican report has a lot of the same arguments that we saw Republicans making during the public impeachment hearings that took place just before Thanksgiving. They say there's no direct evidence that points to any sort of bribery by the president, an attempt to bribe the Ukrainians to hold up a meeting or even this military aid in exchange for opening an investigation into Burisma and Joe Biden, his potential political rival. So they're going to point to that. They're also going to go back to a few lines of questioning we saw come up over and over again. They say ultimately, this aid was actually released to the Ukrainians, so there could not have been a quid pro quo. They're going to say that President Trump was actually the one who provided lethal weapons to Ukraine, so he was arguably a better partner for Ukraine than President Obama was. That's something we saw Republican members on the committee pressing this over and over and over again during these public hearings. And really, they're making the argument that the president himself makes day after day, that you just have to look at a transcript of this phone call, and they say, as the president does, there was no quid pro quo and there's no direct evidence. Now, of course, one of the big problems with this argument is the fact that anyone who could have provided potential direct evidence about an aid holdup, people like White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, refused to come in and testify before the committee. So that's certainly still a hole that I bet Republicans are going to point to because it's evidence that the Democrats just don't quite have yet.
And Rebecca, as this process now moves into the Judiciary Committee, does this report then offer a sort of roadmap for the points we may see Republicans there make? I mean, it seems as if, as you mentioned, these talking points we've heard before. So it seems this is the consistent version vis-a-vis the Republicans, correct?
Absolutely, that's correct. And you see over and over again that Republicans on the Hill take their cues from the president himself, whatever defenses he is making on Twitter or in person, such as pointing to that phone call and saying that it was a perfect phone call. You'll see them make that again up on Capitol Hill when they're speaking both to witnesses and to the American public. So they'll take their cues directly from the president. We're also going to see them, however, make a lot of arguments about the process here, say that this hearing is fundamentally unfair to the president, that he is not being given due process. And now what we saw over the weekend was that White House counsel said that they were not going to participate in the upcoming Judiciary Committee hearing happening this Wednesday. That's going to be on sort of the constitutional grounds for impeachment because they say they aren't given enough rights. They didn't have enough time to prepare. They aren't being allowed to really call witnesses. So for the moment, they're not going to participate. And so we're going to see Republicans, in addition to making these substantive arguments in the report coming out today, also point to concerns about the process happening here.
And Rebecca, looking ahead then to Chairman Adam Schiff's report, what is he basing this report on, and when will the public get to see his findings?
Well, the House Intelligence Committee, meeting just below me 2 floors right now, is probably putting the final touches on that report, dotting the I's, crossing those T's, because they are going to let members of the committee start reading it sometime this evening around 6 p.m. And then tomorrow night, Tuesday night, they're going to hold a vote to formally approve the report with the majority findings. After that, we expect it to be transmitted to the Judiciary Committee and also at some point to be released to the public. So all of us are going to get to read it. But really, to look to an outline of the Democrats' arguments in that report, I think we need to look no further than the sort of closing argument that Chairman Schiff made in the last hearing. For Democrats, they do see evidence of a quid pro quo. Also, going back to that phone call, they say when President Trump told Ukrainian President Zelensky, do us a favor, though, and brought up investigations, that he was asking for this particular investigation to help his political future. Republicans say this is just evidence that the president is concerned broadly about corruption in Ukraine, but Democrats drill down and say it's really about Burisma, it's about Joe Biden, it's about making that particular link and not about broad corruption concerns. They're also going to point to many, many witnesses who testified publicly before their committee who said that they understood there to be a direct link between a meeting between President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky, or that military assistance, and President Zelensky publicly announcing that he was opening these investigations. So both sides are going to make their best case, and as we move forward to the Judiciary Committee, that's when we move forward to potential articles of impeachment actually being drafted and potentially going to the full floor of the House for a vote.
All right, a busy week ahead for lawmakers there. Rebecca Kaplan on Capitol Hill, thank you.
Thanks, Tanya.